Paul, could you edify, and it's a little off topic here, but for many folks it should be on topic, the fact that metabolites derived from marinol arguably are detectable compared to those derived from the plant material.
Yeah, sure. Well, marinol contains synthetic THC, so when THC is broken down to the carboxy THC metabolite, it's going to look very close. It's going to resemble the THC metabolite from marijuana. Tests can't really distinguish between the two. There is a test, in fact, that can, but no state lab is going to use it.
Is that El Sole's $17,000 test?
Yes, that's El Sole's test.
Do the immunoassay test for natural occurring endocannabinoids?
Mm-hmm.
They'll test positive?
No.
Okay.
In Todd McCormick's case, federal court in LA, they tried to use El Sole's test because he was allowed to use marinol but not cannabis, and the court ruled that it didn't pass through their test.
Right. And I think that's the only time it's tried to even be introduced.
Yeah.
So these zero tolerance laws that aren't based in science and basically could fuck all of us, who's behind them? Well, obviously the drug czar who thinks that 24 hours after you smoke pot, you're still too impaired to drive a car. He's behind this. Robert DuPont, former drug czar, used to support decriminalization, now makes his living in drug testing. He thinks we must move away from the concept that you can't drive impaired by drugs, you can't drive on drugs at all. He has actually a very interesting theory about how to make this happen. He thinks that if you arrest everybody who has a license and is driving and has carboxy THC in your urine, and then you put them on probation with mandatory hair testing for the next 5 years, you will discourage people from doing this. And he has published papers and has presented about how to make this the law of the land. John Bobo, who is actually probably more in the ear of anyone in the Department of Transportation and the White House on this issue than any other single person, says that every state needs a law defining, in essence, a crime divorced from impairment. At least he's transparent about what he wants. That says if you use an illicit drug and drive, you have broken the law. We need to treat DUID as important an offense as murder, rape, and child molestation.
Yeah, there you go.
I know anyone here has researched the sort of legal environment of the European witch hunts, but there was this thing called spectral evidence, and the whole idea of guilt and innocence became deliberately divorced from causality. And I'm wondering, where is the American science establishment happening? Where is the American science establishment while this is happening? Because what we're having is, we're having laws that are being divorced from causality, which means we are literally in a witch hunt phase where we are having spectral evidence. This is literally spectral evidence.
The scientific community is actually quite divorced on this. And you would think the courts would try and straighten some of this out. When I talk about Michigan, we're going to see how the courts have actually come down on this. Interesting, California is trying to pass one of these laws, and I was there testifying against it back in December, I think, before one of the legislative committees in California, and one of the people that testified before me was a representative of the California Narcotics Officers Association. All these people said, we need these laws, we need these laws, we have these laws, we're going to reduce drug driving. I said, are you aware of any evidence showing that to be the case? I said, if you were, I'd imagine that any of the 8 speakers that have come before me would have been citing it, and none of you have. So I'm curious. I've actually brought quite a bit of evidence showing that these laws aren't based on science, and in fact have not reduced levels of drug driving. He called me Joseph McCarthy, very interestingly enough. And I said, where do you get that analogy? He said, you've brought lists with you. I said, well, these are actually studies that are undermining your premise, but he didn't seem to make the connection.